And we are live on AUS Property Investors, and you're not missing the stream. We're just a little bit, we've been strategizing, we've been bantering backstage. So sorry for those. The crowd is going wild. How you going, Joe? What's happening?
Oh, mate, I'm very good. Rarely do we get to sit down ourselves and talk property. We usually have an amazing guest on, and I realize we haven't had enough time together, mate. So we need more time together to strategize and talk buying investment properties, because that's what we do. We're very fond of that. So I'm excited for this one, mate. How are you, more importantly?
Yeah, I've been knee deep in some research over the last couple of weeks. Well, not that. I mean, when I say that, I've been calling around a couple of locations in anticipation for this podcast, just to sort of narrow down. And I procrastinated, and I left it till sort of the last minute. So I sort of am comfortable with the location, but yeah, I usually do heaps more research. But yeah, I'm pretty confident and very comfortable about talking about this. But yeah, going well, man, going well. It's a little cold for my liking, but yeah, that's okay.
Mate, the temperature's dropped drastically. Winter is coming. Winter is bloody coming.
Need to do a boots on the ground up to Townsville. Let's do that. I heard it's 25 degrees or whatever it is up there. So, but for those joining us, drop a question, drop a comment, do a little likes, all that good stuff. And if this may be a little bit more visual, not completely, but so jump on our YouTube as well. I prepared some slides. So, and we're going to have some platforms that we look at as well. So we're going to dive into some data, so some platforms. So, and we're going to talk. I've discovered a deal, and I haven't actually run it through the due diligence process. So I want to. This could be a bit of an epic fail. It could actually end up being in a flood zone. So I hope not. But I was going to do it, and I thought, you know what? I want to see if it actually. Yeah. Anyway, enough about me, Joe. Shall we get to quote of the week?
Mate, what's your quote of the week?
So I have one. I was going to use the Dwayne Johnson, and I got nervous. Whenever I pick somebody that's alive, I hear Steve Ignite ringing in my ears telling me that if you're going to get sued by somebody if they're alive. So I decided to go ancient, and I went to Confucius, who said, "It does not matter how slowly you go, as long as you do not stop." So I think everybody sort of is so quick they want to get to the end goal, they want to get to the ultimate goal. But they don't stop to realize that somebody else's ultimate goal may not be achievable as yours. So, and I think that's what we want to unpack in this session. We've done plenty of data deep dives, but what we haven't done is gone back a few steps and said, okay, what comes first? Because if you don't do this pre-work, I think you're setting yourself up for failure. But anyway, or you can still do well, but not as well. So what about you, Joe? What's your quote of the week?
Nice quote of the week, mate. Fantastic quote of the week. Mine is by someone quite as old, maybe older, I don't know, by Lao Tzu. New beginnings are often disguised as painful endings. And this is kind of reminiscent on these RBA interest rates, right? We thought we were coming to the end of these rate rises. We thought it was done. Literally, didn't you say, Jeff? You sent me a screenshot of something that 100% of the market thought that the interest rates were going to stay, and so they pulled it out the bag. They pulled out 0.25 increase.
I tell you what has. I don't necessarily. There's a couple of things around that, but yeah, I agree with your quote. Your quote is really, really good. So you got to prepare for those sort of things, and just make sure.
What are your thoughts on the rates?
Yeah, it's interesting because although I was reading the RBA cash rate bond trader thingamajiggy that I look at, and it has been pretty correct for the last sort of you wouldn't need to be a rocket science to work that out. But my thoughts is that they saw that people were starting to get FOMO again, like people were paying ridiculous amounts in some places, and even for properties like in Sydney, like everybody was starting boom times again. And inflation was still is still above 6%. So like,
7.
Although the market expects us, we got to do something about this. We can't just let this go on. We need to keep putting pressure on the market.
Yeah. And like everyone expected it to stay the same, but in retrospect, I think it's probably the smartest move. Like with inflation of where it's at right now, maybe not it's not a terrible thing to do. But anyway, tonight is not about interest rates. Tonight is about unpacking where Jef would buy if he's buying a $400,000 property and where I would buy if I was buying a $600,000 property. And then how do we actually get to that? Because it's not just about the location. That doesn't really matter. biggest question that gets asked in this group is, where the hell do I buy? You shouldn't be asking that. You need to be asking a lot more fundamental questions, which I'm sure we're going to touch on tonight. However, we don't have a guest tonight, guys. So you guys are our interviewers. So if you guys have any questions along the way, I want to kind of roll with the punches and throw out any questions. So if anyone does have any questions, flick them in there.
Full disclaimer, Joe, I've done more thought about the process and the location. So I still back the location, but yeah, would I buy in this location? Yeah, potentially I would. But I need to. I love to visit. Property. Yeah, I need to visit a location as you love to. So got a
boots on the ground, baby. Boots on the ground. Before we jump into this epic session, we are going to introduce. Great questions thrown out as already.
Perfect. Is that Jordan De Jong? Let me have a look.
Where you can actually have the property pay itself off over 10 years, which is absolutely... The amazing thing with commercial property investing is that in most cases it's cash flow positive from day one, which means that you can drive those profits towards paying down the debt. There are instances with commercial property investing where you can actually have the property pay itself off over 10 years, which is absolutely crazy. With commercial property, you get massive net yields, so you can expect anywhere between 6 to 10%. And as we've seen in the current boom, these properties not only provide large cash flow, they do certainly grow wildly in value too. Now, with big rewards comes some risk, and this is why you should de-risk your investment as much as possible. And the way you do that is with expert due diligence. And this is why we highly recommend people hire professionals to help you along in your investing journey. Steve Polisi of Polisi Property is one such expert. Being a chartered mechanical and structural engineer in a past life, Steve draws on his analytical and mathematical skills to do that expert due diligence for you. With 6 years experience in the space, Steve has over 1,200 property transactions under his belt. He's the guy you want in your corner, crunching the numbers and finding the best properties in the best locations, along with ensuring that you avoid the mistakes. Steve has actually even written the book on commercial property investing in Australia, and not only is it a bestseller, I believe it to be the most comprehensive in commercial property investing on the market today. He's been generous enough to give us a massive discount for our audience of 50%. So use the code OZPROP, click the link below, get a copy today, and start learning and getting on your commercial property investing journey.
Now what? Oh, hello, boys.
We're back. Here we go. Back. So that's it's really interesting that the whole that I could just see like 130 people are registered for this session, and I was talking to a bloke called Sam today, who works for somebody, and he was just saying that I'm a celebrity. I was like, "Are you?" I'm like, "I'm not a celebrity. What are you kidding me?" I was just like, "This is a joke." Like, yeah. But anyway, so should we? I don't think we should introduce ourselves, Joe, because I think people probably know who we are by now. I mean, or do you want to introduce me, and I can introduce you? Because if you do, I'm going to have to go and get that bio of yours.
Yeah. Let's just say we're great. Jef is pretty good. I'm pretty good. We should know if you're watching this, you should know a little bit more about us. If you don't, join our newsletter, join our Facebook group, and then join our YouTube, and then like and subscribe. Because every time you like and subscribe, good things happen to you. Good things, great things, especially for your property journey. Anyway, let's jump in, mate. Let's jump in. What are we talking about today?
So we are talking about the I suppose the way you can supercharge your investments, how to select your next or first investment property. So what does that actually mean? Because for me, when I put this session together in my mind, and Joe sort of embellished for me to do that, what I was thinking about is we see all these people just go straight to I'm going to go and buy in Leichhardt, or I'm going to go and buy in, I don't know, they're going to go buy in Shepparton, or they're going to buy in Townsville, or in Logan, or in Toowoomba, or in, I don't know, even somewhere like a Gosnells, so to speak. They're going to buy in these areas, and they jump straight to it, and they ask, or even St. Mary's. I saw the other day somebody was interested, and I said, "What do you want to know about St. Mary's? Like, why are you buying there?" And the persons, or the people, they just want to know info about the area. But the problem is that you haven't even considered okay, St. Mary's probably has a median house price of about 800,000 roughly, depending on which St. Mary's you're talking about. If you're talking about North St. Mary's, you can probably pick some up for 700. But let's say, so if you want to buy in St. Mary's and your budget is 450, yes, you can pick up a nice little apartment on sort of Putland Street. But I would not be buying that asset in that suburb, because you can pick it up, but if you look at it, it sold probably in 2002 for 320,000. So how much capital? And we've seen Sydney couple of growth cycles. So that's why I wanted to actually take a step back and unpack the process, Joe. It's long-winded, Joe, but what are your thoughts on that?
That makes perfect sense, mate. We are accelerating your property portfolio. I feel like we need the
definitely the disclaimer for sure.
Yeah, there's got to be a disclaimer somewhere. None of this is financial advice. Don't take this as that. So
have you got the little person?
No, don't have it. Don't have it. No. I'll bring it up at some stage. But it all starts like before you even jump in. One of the first things people say is like, "Where do I buy?" And they haven't even spoken to a mortgage broker. That's the best place to start. When you're starting out, join this forum and say, "Where do I start?" And then go onto the little search icon and then type in broker and start talking to some brokers. One really important thing I think that is overlooked for a team member, you need to build out an A team, a team of financial people that understand the property market way more than you. This is not a solo sport. Financial freedom is like climbing a mountain, right? No one has climbed Mount Everest by themselves. They have a team of people that help them along the journey. So as you're climbing, you're getting help. Now, you can absolutely try and climb Mount Everest by yourself, but what is going to happen is you're going to get halfway up this road and this path, and then one, you're going to get stuck there because you don't know what you're doing, or two, you're going to have to reverse and go all the way back down. So I think building out a core team of accountants, mortgage brokers, conveyancers, good conveyancer can really mess up a deal. Buyer's agents, if you're going down that route. But yeah, education is fundamental. But let's have a chat with finance. Jef, what does this mean?
Yeah, it's interesting because for those people who've seen me chat, so I'll say that I'm an ex-broker and it was only a broker for about a year, but in that year I felt that I learned plenty, and just because it was with a really kind of investment savvy brokerage company, which was fantastic learning and really kind of opened my eyes. They say that property is a game of finance where bricks and mortar thrown in. So it's cliched, but true. If you can't finance a property, it's going to be whether that's through cash or from a loan from a bank, then you're stuck at the starting blocks. So when we talk about finance, I think one of the critical, and you've got your broker in there, I think the critical question you should be sort of understanding and asking is, well, how are you? Well, we should even start with the ultimate goal, Joe. But we'll sort of let's imagine we'll talk to the ultimate goal. So we sort of that goes hand in hand. But let's imagine you've got your 20 years time or 10 years time, you want 150, 100K is the magic number people throw out there. With a bit of inflation, let's say 150. So you want 150K in 10 or 15 years or 20 years. So you should be saying to your broker, saying, okay, great, here's what I want to do, helping build out that plan with them, and sort of saying, and they can sort of assist you to say, based on your numbers, they can punch your numbers into a system, and it's going to change over time. You're not gonna. It's not a static plan. So, credit policies change week to week or month to month and all that sort of thing. So, but at least if you have that sort of, if it's 4 properties that gets you there, or if it's 5 properties, then you know exactly what you need to do. And that's where asking your broker, well, what experience have you had with helping a property investor build their portfolio? What things do I need to do? Do I need to increase my income, or do I need to what do I need to do to get to that situation is a vital question to ask.
Yeah. And I think that's where a lot of people just say, I want to buy property, which is not always the best case. What you need to do is, like, what I like to think about is paint that picture for what's your end state. Like, a lot of people, it's just replace my income. All I want to do is replace the income that I'm on. Okay, great. Well, how are you going to do that? Is it going to be let's say $150,000 is how much you want to go. So, okay, $150,000 divided by 5 properties, that's 30 grand free cash flow that you need every single for each property. continually.
Yep.
So great. You need to go out there and find 5 properties and then get that. The challenge is, and this is why you need someone to help you, but you also need a platform or a tool that's going to allow you to do that. This is not something, I always see these people that are like, hey, use this tech tool that's going to do absolutely everything for you. It's just too many variables, and you need someone else to guide it. So you can do it yourself, obviously, but yeah, I prefer having like a strategy laid out where it's got someone that knows what they're talking about when it comes to strategy. You enter in your end goal, you enter where you currently are now, and then builds the best path to get you there. But at each point, when you get a new property, that plan is, I like to think about it like when you look at something really close, everything else is super blurry. So this thing is crystal clear. This next property, the whole point of doing a property kind of plan is that this next property is going to be 100% crystal clear of what I need it to be to allow me to get into these next ones. And then that third one is way too blurry for you to see. But then when you've got this next one, you then ask the question to your broker, Mr. Broker or Mrs. Broker, what does this next property need to be to allow me to get into this next one? Because that is one of the most crucial things. And they're going to say to you, well, look, you need to actually get a super cash flow positive property right now because you can't afford to buy another one after this because it's going to lock you in. Or, hey, your income's actually pretty good. You could buy 5 properties after this. You have a borrowing capacity of $1.8 million. So you could actually go really, really heavy. But then you might get stuck in a little bit. So then you need to get to that point and then, and then go back to the broker and say, what do I need to do now? How do I get to that next one?
Yeah. The trap that I see some people sort of get into with brokers or accountants or whoever it is they kind of expect the broker to tell them the exact kind of, okay, here's the exact plan. And don't get me wrong, I'm sure there's like 1 or 2 brokers and 1 or 2 accountants out there in the world that have the time or just super, but you have to take some accountability for that as well. You can't, like a broker will tell you how they can get you the finance, but at the same time, and they'll sort of give you a bit of guidance, a bit of help, but you absolutely need to sort of, like, you ask the questions and then you go and implement what they're asking you to do. If you expect a broker to say, okay, here's the exact kind of, when you're purchasing properties and all that sort of stuff, I think it's probably a bit short-sighted, a little bit of expectations too high. A broker is really good at getting finance. But probably one of the more pointed questions I would ask a broker to see if they are an investment savvy broker is, how have you helped somebody who struggled with getting stuck with their borrowing capacity? Like, how have you helped somebody hit a serviceability wall? Because that will, and of course, they can always, there's 6 salespeople out there who'll tell you, oh, I do X, Y, and Z, and they'll get found out pretty quickly when you go back to them in a year's time and they can't actually do what they've said they can do. So, but that's kind of, that's kind of one of the qualifying questions I'll ask somebody. And some of the answer to that is, if they're talking about things like multi-lender strategy and things like resetting loan terms, and none of this is financial advice, but do speak to your broker who has an Australian credit license, all that sort of stuff. But there are ways that you can overcome, and you need to be comfortable with second and third tier lenders if you're going to build a larger portfolio in today's lending environment, particularly with. So those are the kind of questions you should be asking your broker before you even get started on looking on realestate.com.
Yeah. I was actually having a chat with one of my brokers today, and I was like, what is the biggest thing that you see first-time investors getting wrong? And what is the other thing that you see your savvy investors doing? And what is that? How do you kind of marry the two together so that you guys can learn from the mistakes? He came back with something, and I wanted to read it out because it's super, super interesting. He said, it becomes clear that most successful clients are those who maximize their equity. And this is, again, not financial advice. Maximize their equity with the mainstream lenders before turning to higher rate lenders for additional funds. These savvy investors take out as much equity as possible at the favorable rates, then opt for a lower LVR purchase, 60 to 70%, with lenders that have higher rates, minimizing their lending costs and improving their cash flow. By doing so, They are all well prepared to capitalize on opportunities, make additional purchases as soon as their capacity allows, and it gives them liquidity. This strategy has proven to be effective for both rookie and seasoned investors as well.
There you go, Joe. That's the multi-lender strategy, mate. You've you've just cottoned on to the thing that we used to use that a little bit.
Obviously, that's not financial advice, but I find that super interesting, right? Because what he's seeing is, I have a client that has $300,000 PPOR equity. They've bought the property, it's grown, it's boomed. You've done incredibly well, congratulations. And then they go out there and they go to a lender and they say, I want to only take out $100,000 and use that to purchase this property. What he's saying is, no, take $300,000 out and then go and use that as a deposit, because you may get, one, a better lender, and two, you can then use it, keep going. Solid advice, Joe's broker. Exactly. It's probably, what's the name on that person who said that? It's probably the broker.
No, that's Greg Warner. I love how Greg's become a big supporter. So I just thought I'd bring the questions up as some of them as they come along. Any thoughts on SMSF lending? So I can jump into this one if you want, Joe, or what are your thoughts?
My thoughts are speak to a investment.
Speak to a broker. So look, my thoughts are, because it really went out of favor 3 to 4 years ago. Like a lot of the majors, like your St. George's, your Westpacs, even Macquarie exited, from my understanding. So right now, my understanding of SMSF is it's now started to become a little bit easier to get SMSF finance. So it's still not cheap. I think you're probably paying 0.5%, maybe a little bit more above. But it's with these kind of specialized lenders. I think, just trying to remember the one of the, I don't know the exact. So we used to actually have them come in and chat to when we're brokers, but they were, I think it was Think Tank. Think Tank is one of the, I don't think the average person, I think you need to go for a broker. But I think they do up to 80% LVR, and you need to meet specific minimums on SMSF amount in there. So it can work. You just have to accept that there's a few more hoops to jump through with SMSF lending.
Yeah, and you got it. There's a little bit more. There was actually a great session that was on the Pizza and Property podcast with Todd Sloan and Jeremy Inuzelli. Actually, we're getting Jeremy Inuzelli on next week. Is it? No, not next week.
No, it's the 28th of June, mate. He likes to come on around tax time.
Okay, we're getting him on to talk about SMSF lending, because it's an area that I'm dealing with a lot more, because investors are more interested. Like, I'm tapped out from a personal perspective, but I've got a massive chunk of nest egg here that isn't being leveraged. How can I leverage that to get into that next deal? Yeah, cool. Okay.
Let's move on to the strategy piece, shall we, Joe? Or if people have questions on finance, and I feel we could do a whole session on that, but let's talk strategy.
Let's talk strategy. Okay. Well, what more do we need to cover off on strategy? Speak to a broker, understand how much you can borrow. There's no point going out there. There's no point going out there and trying to figure out, hey, I need to borrow $100,000. I can borrow $700,000, or trying to go out there and find a $300,000 property.
Yeah. When I suppose I talk strategy, like I was talking about more the property strategy, as in, so you've uncovered your finance, you got that in. So now you sort of get to the stage where, okay, you've figured out you've got $400K or $500K, and what type of investor are you? Is the kind of thing I was thinking, Joe. Yeah, like are you a buy and hold or set and forget, or are you a renovation?
You threw the softball at me and I swing and a miss.
That's all right. Long day.
Did not see that one coming. Yes, exactly. That is what we need to cover off. And that's a perfect example. So one of the first property that I bought through one of these high volume buyers agencies, one of these agents that are the coolest in the thing. They do pay for all the marketing. You see them on all the podcasts and all of the things. But it turned out a terrible result for me. But one of the questions that I said to them was, and I take full responsibility because I didn't ask the right questions to get set up in the first place. I said I wanted a full scale renovation, and that's what they gave me. So it's entirely up to me. But one of the things is you've got to realize is if you are a full-time parent, you have a full-time job. Sometimes these larger projects may not be the best thing specifically for you. I always like to say we buy the best property in the best price, at the best price, in the best location for the buyer brief, because what is your buyer brief will determine the property. You need to have and set out what that buyer brief looks like so you can go out there and actually execute on that deal. And that does include time, energy, and resources for yourself.
Yeah. So somebody said, "What's next after multi-lender approach?" I think once you figure that out, you go and decide what type of strategy your next property requires. So I think as well, it has to tie in with your ultimate goal, which talks to why you're the number, as in how much you need in, if it's replacing your job income, which a lot of people want to do. If that's 100K, like when do you need to do that by? Is one of the key questions you should be asking yourself.
Well, yeah, it's a lot of the time, and we will talk to this in this session. I'm seeing a lot of people becoming a little bit more savvier with these type of value add opportunities. A lot of the people that I see are building a portfolio of things that need value add, because in property, just like anything else in the real world, if you find a problem and you create a solution for that problem, you will get paid for it. It depends on how big the problem is, of how much money you're going to make. But if the market is requiring a product and you can create that product, be it a 2-bedroom that you turn into a 3-bedroom, and the market demands more for that product, then you're going to get more money for it. So that's a good problem to solve. If people don't want 3-bedroom homes, they want 4-bedroom homes, great, do it with a 3-bedroom. So identify your own capacity, would you say, Jef?
Yeah, I think it's more around your resources, because you're constrained by. There's 3 resources I'd say you have. Actually, no, it's probably 2. Let's say it's 3. Let's say there's skill, there's time, and there's money. So if you're usually deficient or lacking in one of those. If you've got skill, time, and money, then amazing. But if you've got a lot of money but not a lot of time, and you've got some skill, then that's fantastic. But if you've got skill and time but not a lot of money, then you need to marry up what your strategy is to that sort of situation. So for instance, somebody who wants a set and forget, or who wants to get 100K passive income in 5 years, somebody who is purely doing a buy and hold strategy, that's probably not going to work for you. I hate to say it, but as much as the gurus out there saying you can buy 8 properties in 4 years on 60 or 70K income, it's very unlikely to work.
Yeah.
So if that's your kind of ultimate goal of what you want to do, then you really need to look at, well, what strategies are available to me, and do I have the knowledge and the time to execute those? So
yeah, I agree. I think a lot of people fall into these empty promises of where people are over promising and under delivering. But at the end of the day, if you can force value, then you will get paid and rewarded for that. You can definitely overcapitalize.
You and I are both huge advocates of that. Like I've done developments and renovations. You love a reno, and you're sort of looking at developments as well. So we both love those strategies because what I was going to say though is the other thing is, just because you do a renovation or you do a development doesn't mean you'll make money. Like I think you have to, just because you can do a reno, as Joe said, overcapitalizing is probably one of them. You need to actually understand, well, what is the end value product's going to be worth, and what is the new property going to sell for? What is the valuation going to be? We've done heaps of sessions with developers and renovators, and even talked to it ourselves.
Yeah. And I think the buy-in price, you need to negotiate incredibly well. You need to spruce up on your negotiation. Was that the Hello House ad we ran? He does a course on negotiation. Every person in my business runs through that course, because it's actually incredibly, incredibly well. It's really well done, and you will learn how to negotiate better. So you'll become a better negotiator. So check that out if we haven't already done that.
We did Polizzi first show, but you were telling me the other day about a story of property in the, not in the east coast, over the other coast of Australia, and we were chatting. We were chatting, and they wanted mid-4s for a property, and we sort of looked at the end, or you looked at the end properties, and you sort of said, well, it's not like you can't, if you buy it at that price, it's going to cost, you had to do a whole reno on the house. And so that's probably 30 to 40K plus the time to exit. So, and then the properties, the end sale properties, you said that you brought this to me. I thought it was worthwhile mentioning, and they were worth 500. So like you're doing the reno, and so you said to the agent, you said, hey, look, this is only worth to me maximum 420. And he said, well, okay, that's not going to cut the mustard. So we're like, okay, cool, that's fine, it's all good.
Yeah, exactly.
I think too many people will just, sorry, you go.
Yeah, well, that's it. If the property's valued at 450, and then the end sale value is 500, and then we need to spend $40,000 on a renovation, so we're making $10,000. We're putting $40,000 in, and we're making $10,000. What you really want to be doing is putting in $20,000 and getting $40,000 to $60,000. You want $2 to $3 back. I mean, $2 is still fantastic. Don't get me wrong.
Yeah, I'd take $2 every day of the week.
Yeah, it's a great ROI, and if you've got the borrowing capacity to do it, then you'll be able to continue buying and continue your portfolio. Because my goal is always to pull that deposit out. How can I have a property that adds value? Now, one thing in talking about all of this stuff, one thing that I think is crucially important to mention is a deal that I did a couple of years back in Geelong, actually. We're going to be talking about this market itself soon. I bought this property for $280,000. I renovated it for $20,000. So I'm $300,000 in. It then grew in value because I did an effective renovation. I did a lot of the work myself. I put a lot of sweat equity into it. It then grew to $360,000. So awesome. Well done, Joe. You've gone from 280 to 360. Congratulations. Then I sat on that property and did absolutely nothing. I got a great tenant in because I added value. But I bought in an incredibly good area, and it grew from 360 to 550. So yes, adding value is incredibly important, but choosing the location is the most important thing. So when people say location, they didn't make a show about it because it's not valuable. So this is where we talk about, we're going into this now, Jef?
The FAB. Talking about renovation, the FAB, the fundamentals analysis boots on the ground. So I think as well, before we sort of exit out of the strategy, were you about to go into the next sort of research?
I'm getting excited.
You're getting excited. Joe's just excited to talk about is, but what I wanted to say is, so you got that strategy, but then you've got the actual property itself. So this marries up to the conversation you've had with a broker, have your accountant, probably less so your accountant here, but accountants are important to make sure you're understanding your tax position, which you shouldn't invest to get sort of money back from the government for that. If you do, it's kind of a bonus. But the thing that the conversation you have with your broker is, is this property going to be more of a capital growth, or is it a cash flow kind of property? And then you can sort of understand, well, what sort of, particularly in a 3.85% RBA cash rate environment, which may go above 4% next month. So you sort of, now interest rates are high fives, or potentially high fives, low sixes. So in that environment, trying to buy a 3 or 4% yielding property, it may not work based on your income. So you really need to understand if you want to buy in Sydney or in Melbourne, in the sort of, as much as rents have increased in Sydney, I think somewhat now prices are going back up again in these places. So you need to sort of understand what the exact property strategy is in terms of what the yields, or if is it a capital growth play? Can you afford to outlay 20 to 30 to 40K to hopefully sort of see capital growth? And how much and if it doesn't grow if you don't get capital growth, how can you add value as well? That's what I like. That's the way I like to think about things. Yeah.
I completely agree, mate. I am on the same page with you with that stuff. I feel like we're missing something.
What are you missing, Joe?
We're missing the FAB. I think we're missing.
Fundamentals analysis, boots on the ground.
Okay, so yeah, just to actually one thing I wanted to mention, just because I feel like we talk about the A team all the time, it is very important. Like I think the accountant can sometimes get overestimated at times. And I'm not trying to talk down accountants. I just think some people get so wrapped up in structures and things like that maybe just I don't know. I feel like I can't touch this subject without getting in trouble from one, accountants, and two, financial advice. But if you're buying your first property by yourself, I just wouldn't get too wrapped up in all of that stuff. I would just say, hey, go out there and do it. Unless you have a business and you're a doctor that's very litigious, like an area where you're going to get sued. It's only when you start to build a bit more of a substantial portfolio when you should really start to think about these structures and things. So just don't get too wrapped up in all of it, because I know property it's confusing. It's difficult. There's a lot of moving parts, but try not to overcomplicate it too much, if that makes sense. I don't know if you like it.
I think it depends on how big of a portfolio you want as well, because the problem is if you're not earning sort of 200 or 300K, and if you're the challenge is if you're sort of not planning on increasing your income, then at some stage, I suppose it then depends on, I suppose worrying about the trust kind of things can be done down the track. There's some, I mean, I'm not saying go and speak to your accountant, all that sort of stuff, and speak to your broker, yada yada. But some people are in the camp that you need to set up trust straight away to preserve that sort of borrowing capacity. And look, there's pros and cons to that, and there are others that say, look, you don't need to do that straight away. So I think there's horses for courses, and you need to factor in. But at some stage, yes, trust can be a consideration to help with borrowing capacity. But just realize then that you generally need a bigger deposit, and there are other limitations, as in like you can't capture. Like negative gearing is an issue, and capital gains tax exemptions, all that sort of stuff in trust.
Yeah. And they're super confusing to understand. So, just sometimes, if you're getting started, go to I don't know. Let's just jump into FAB. Let's jump into the FAB. I'm going to get in trouble for saying these things. So what is the FAB? It is the fundamentals, analysis, and boots on the ground. I don't really know what the slides are next, so I'm just going to kind of jump through to see if it's going to give me what I want.
It'll give you what you want.
Didn't give me what I wanted. I wanted this one. I wanted this one,
man.
Because these are the fundamentals. What are the fundamental drivers of that area? So tonight, Jef and I are going to talk about two areas independently. I'm looking at a $600,000 area. He's looking at a $400,000 to $450,000 area. Where the heck will we buy? So when you're doing... I'm thinking, like, I've kind of framed my mind around, I have a person, investor. They're not a client of mine. They're doing their own thing. They want to go out there and spend their first property. What should be the basic things that I need to do to cover my ass a little bit as an investor? How do I do that? How do I make sure that when I go out there, I don't want to knock the lights out with a 1% of the 1%er. That'd be nice, but... That'd be very nice. You do a lot more research, go a little bit deeper into it. But for their first property, they're thinking about, hey, how do I make sure that I don't screw it up? A lot of people come to me and say, hey, Joe, I just don't want to mess it up. And it's like, that's fair. That's fair enough. Anyway. So
you and I both made mistakes here.
Yeah, 100%. So population, who are the people living there and how are they going to drive growth? Is it an aging population? Are people getting a lot older there? Are they starting to, or is it becoming younger? Are you getting more first families there? Is it going to shift a little bit more? Are there more families getting made? Is there more? It's kind of around families and age, those type of things. Employment, is it a diverse workforce, and what are the jobs and the types of property kind of locations that bring money? So think about it from like Wollongong, for instance. Wollongong is an area that used to be heavy industry, right? There used to be a whole heap of heavy industry. Now they have the University of Wollongong. They've then changed a little bit. It's coastal. So when we start talking about desirability, do the people actually want to live there? And what is bringing home owner-occupiers? Well, you've got a beautiful beach there. But going back to employment, we've got a great hospital. We've got a great university, and that's starting to bring smart people to spend smart money. They're getting smart money and they're spending a little bit more.
As much as I love Wollongong, mate, the Wollongong Hospital it's okay, but let's call a spade a spade. It's serviceable. we'll say that. I love anybody who works at Wollongong Hospital, and you did a fantastic job. So, but compared to up in Sydney, mate, nothing beats the big smoke up in Sydney. But love Wollongong, big fan, big supporter. But go on. You got so many drivers down here in Wollongong, Joe. If you want to talk about Wollongong, I should have done a session on that. But anyway,
I know. I shouldn't have spoken out of school on the Wollongong market. So anyway, we're going back to the FAB fundamentals analysis, boots on the ground. The projects, what are the big projects happening and what is driving the capital growth? If there is, and it's not necessarily per capita spend, it's not per dollar spent. So if there's a $2 billion project, like if you look on some of these infrastructure and project websites, you can see there's $2 billion spent here, $8 billion spent here, proposed plans, proposed. That's the government proposing those things. There's probably a 40% chance of that thing actually happening. And do you think a wind farm, like a solar farm, is going to bring people? Yeah, when they're building it, it will. But what do you need to operate a solar farm? Not very much. You just need a couple of people, wipe the lens. I mean, I have no idea about solar farms, but I know that they don't drive a whole heap of value to the community. But if they're doing a massive...
You remember that website, Joe? Because I love that website that you brought up. Was it, or you don't have it off the top of your head? Okay.
Bring it up.
All right. But yeah, while we're chatting that, I tend to agree. And it's just sort of, we're going to jump into several platforms that we're going to look at sort of suburb trends and suburb finder as well, and microburbs. We're going to look at those who know we've used these and chatted these several times. But we'll sort of show once you've understood your sort of end goal, you've gone through that process, then you can then sort of look to using these platforms to understand, to crunch the data. And the data is only one part of it. Is a big part of the process, we believe, Joe and I. But then you sort of start to do boots on the ground, which can be done somewhat remotely via sort of professionals, your property managers, all that sort of people. But I really love to fly and get on a plane. Pretty much, I'm going to say from here on out, I'm going to buy most properties. I'm going to buy. I'm going to be there in person to understand and look at the property.
100%.
Maybe I shouldn't say that. I don't think we're going to have 100 property portfolio, but I'll probably settle for about 10 or 12.
Yeah, 100%. Like, it's so crucial. The amount of time, like I've seen so many people make silly mistakes because, again, the suburb does 80% of the heavy lifting, but there's still 20% there for you to mess it up, which is where the boots on the ground is so important, because everyone knows an area that in their local community that is just terrible. Like, do not go there. The problem is areas shift and change over time. So there's parts in Wollongong, for instance, that 10 years ago you would have heard a whole heap of crap about, and you wouldn't want to go there at nighttime. Now it's completely different.
You're still hearing about those areas. It is, in fact, one of the areas that I live in. And like you have a chat to the next door neighbor, and they're saying, people get shot in the street, and you say, well, how often did that actually happen? Did that happen? It only happened once, and it happened 15 years ago. How likely is that to ever happen again? But
God.
Yeah. Okay. Oh, yeah. But I mean, it can happen in any suburb.
Worried for you, okay, Jeff?
Yeah, I'm perfectly fine. Perfectly fine.
Okay.
Here we go.
You want to post this in the little Port Kembla? That's the spot. So it's called infrastructurepipeline.org, and it breaks down all of the projects for you. This is not the only resource you use. You check out heaps. So if we go down, like a good example is, let's go, zoomed in heaps. Warrnambool, for instance. What have they got going on? They have a Warrnambool hospital redevelopment. That's a really good indicator, right? 384 million is going to the hospital. More hospital staff, and they get paid really well. Redevelopment, and then what's this one? I'm trying to find one of these larger ones.
It's like super expensive though, isn't it, Joe?
Yeah, I don't like Warrnambool. But
I mean, I'm sure it's a lovely place, but yeah, from an investment perspective.
Yeah, so a battery. Yeah. Anyway, go through this yourself. You don't need me to click around trying to find a proper energy sector. So just don't, when you hear of $2 billion infrastructure projects, just don't be too excited about it, because it may not be.
Understand exactly what that project is and how many jobs it's going to create as well. And are those jobs going to be retained, because that's what's going to drive population, and population growth doesn't necessarily equal capital growth either.
Yeah. Another super. So this is all just a little bit of an equation. Population plus projects plus employment plus desirability equal your opportunity minus the supply of stock. So the supply is the sponge. So we don't want a whole heap of stock coming on the market. So we've got this explore data tabs. I'm pretty sure it's somewhere in the group we talk about this, but you can work out what supply of stock is coming to an area. So is there a lot of infill developments coming on? Is there a lot of greenfield locations happening? What is happening in the area? And you can see them all mapped out, and you look what is happening, what's coming up in the next 12 months, what's coming up in the next 18 months, and that's what's going to be there. So if you see 1,000 houses coming to market in the suburb that you're buying, what are people going to be interested in, your old house, or are they going to be interested in the newer houses? I don't know.
Yeah. And I think it also comes down to if you're buying in that suburb, like how big is the block of land? Because is there some opportunity? Maybe not, but great point. Great point.
Yeah,
I still think it's too much of a risk for me doing that sort of, like, you're speculating that a developer is going to pay you for that price of land, when in reality that developer is, well, they're just essentially, they're doing a sort of feasibility based on, so they need to buy your land for X amount of money. So they're not going to pay overs. They're not emotional. So if they can't afford to buy your block of land, they won't buy it for the price that you potentially want it for. But anyway, tangent.
Analysis is some of the hard data metrics that we're going to talk about soon. So that is supply and demand is one of them. Other things like days on market. We want to see days on market trending down. Listing prices, we want to see we want to see prices going up, to be fair. I don't know why we got a down arrow. Inventory levels
fix
going
the
down.
vacancy rates, but listing
Where's
prices now.
Where's
quite
vacancy
100%.
rates gone? Anyway, vacancy rates, yep, we want to see them sub 3%. Vendor discountings, we want to see the vendor limiting their discounts, because it means that we're getting a hotter market. But going back to this slide, I love this slide, because what we're trying to work out here is, and it's pretty much the picture of a filter with 15,353 suburbs. That's how many suburbs there are in Australia. 3,800 have reliable data. And then you've got to overlay those 3,800 to your budget. So if your budget's 450 to 550,000, guess what? You've just cut 3,800 down to a lot less.
It's still, I didn't expect there to be so many suburbs that I would actually consider in 400 to 450K. Like I looked at it and I was like, oh crap, there's probably 5 or 10 that I could dig a little deeper into when I looked at it. There's probably about sort of 100 or maybe 150 that you'd.
Are there any questions so far? Has anyone got any kind of questions on some of the stuff that, because we don't really, it's just us talking into a mic. We don't really know. Again, talking to supply and demand, this is what drives every single market. This is why your latte is more expensive. This is why building prices have gone crazy. This is why everything. If you did
got a request, can we start at 8:30? Probably not. No, sorry.
I'd be here every time. Well, we're usually still on at 8:30, so that's good.
One thing.
Yeah. Okay, cool. What's this? Searching for property? Yeah,
we pretty much just what we spoke to there. So that was the precursor to what we just chatted about. So should we kind of dive into maybe we should do the ad first, Joe. Do the ad, and then we'll talk to the areas about. And I can go first if you want, or you can go first.
Go on then. Treat us, mate. Treat us.
Should we jump into the paid?
Yes, but just before that, just one question to know. I mean, it's here on the screen, but while this is data-led and scientific, you do need to make sure that you get boots on the ground. You need to confirm what the data is telling you. I did like a year and a half ago. I went to an area that specific. Actually, I did a couple of a month and a half ago. I went to a suburb in WA where the data looks unreal, and there are people buying there right now in other groups saying how amazing these places are. And it is an absolute dump. The problem is the data in the SA3 for the area do not incorporate the vacant land. So from a data perspective, it looks really good. But over the other side, there's a whole heap of vacant land that isn't counting for the supply of this side. So it's not getting calculated into the supply of the property. But also, this suburb and this suburb are the exact same thing. They're just on different sides of the street. Anyway, so
you're going to get another YouTube. You're going to get another YouTube clip made up about you, Joe.
Yeah, exactly.
Maybe not.
Making friends. Okay, let's jump to this thing.
There's nothing worse than going into a situation unprepared, especially when that situation is purchasing one of the most expensive assets of your life against a trained property expert in the form of a real estate agent. It's a scary thought, but it is a skill that can be taught. Do you want to learn how to become fully prepared when buying a property so you can get out there, buy your dream home or investment property without the fear of actually messing it up? Scott Agate, the founder and expert property negotiator at Hello House, has been helping people buy their properties by stepping in and negotiating with the agents and saving his clients tens of thousands and in some cases hundreds of thousands of dollars. Scott has now decided to share all that he's learned over the past 28 years in real estate so you can go out there and do the exact same thing on how to find a property, analyze that property, negotiate on that property, and transact on it to get the best results. He's created the Get Buyer Ready course, which is a step-by-step guide on how you too can become an expert property negotiator. It's the easy way of how you can avoid all of these agent games and get the best purchase price on that dream home or your investment property. The course is in short bites for busy people with no fluff at all. Just all the information you need to get buyer ready and secure that next property with confidence at the best price. Scott has been kind enough to give our community a massive discount with the link below. Sign up today before you even think about putting an offer on that next property, and it will be one of the best decisions you ever make.
You're back, Joe. No, after. Yeah. I'll let you run. Got to remove that one, and it's back to us. So so shall we? Before we get into, there was a lot of suggestions on suburbs that people were looking at between 400 to 450 and 600, and some of them were actually ones that I would have considered as well. So for my one, but we'd already done sorry, you go. We'd already done a deep dive on that one. So an honourable mention to Rockingham. We've already done a deep dive on that though. So I thought that would be too easy for me to mention that one. So,
So what are we doing? What are we doing, Jef? We're going to unpack a suburb.
We are 2 suburbs, one from Joe, one from me. So the one that I decided to pick, and there was consternation over this, not because I don't like the area. I am a fan of it, but I just thought it's the one that, like, people are going to rib me for this area. Like Tommy Newham, if you're watching, mate, you're gonna rib me for this one because I'm just going to come out. It's in an area, so it's called Maddington. So it's in the Gosnells Council area. So, Joe, do you want to could you bring up the data, because I couldn't be bothered sharing my screen. Could you bring up the data for Gosnells?
Oh, okay.
If we look at suburb trends, the suburb finder, sorry. So what I can talk to while Joe's bringing it up. Look at suburb trends first, and then suburb finder. It's kind of the same, but I think I like Suburbs Finder because you can look at all the filters across the screen. But so Maddington, you may not have you've heard of Gosnells, but you may not have heard of Maddington. So look at this. Look at that inventory. It's not as low as what I thought, but
it's hard to see, isn't it? It's kind of hard to see.
Yeah, a little bit. Maybe we should get rid of our
little silly faces.
Yeah, we'll get rid of those.
Okay.
I'll just Joe.
Whoa.
Sorry. So here we go. So if we look at house inventory, it's sort of trending. It's bouncing around between. So it's a hot-ish. I mean, the agents I was speaking to in the research for this, like inventory it has trended down, but it come back up a little bit. So if you go down a bit, Joe,
very stable though. It's very stable. Like it's bouncing between 4 to 5. That's interesting. House listings though.
Absolutely dropping down. It's very, in the agents that I chatted to, just a bit of research for this. It was very, like, they were pretty. You'd call them up sort of the first day it listed or second day, and it was close to being under offer. So if you look at house price, look at that sort of. Go to, if you're looking at So now it's actually, so it's telling me that's surprising. So am I cheating here? Because in one, if I looked at, so that's house probably includes other things. So yeah, what does it say? If you go up to the top, it said 419 is, go up a bit. Yeah, so it said median asking. Okay, so
well,
price.
this is where although all of these tools and platforms are great, cross-check all of them. This is a free tool. By the way, this tool that we're using is a platform called suburbtrends.com.au. No, just .com actually. So he is. This is from Kent Lardner. He is a smart dude. He's created this entire platform. It's completely free. Scroll down to this bit, go to Suburb Trends map. It'll open a map of Australia and you get access to all the data. Then you just search your area. So if you're talking Maddington, that's kind of where we're at today. So this is what we get to when we start talking about these things here. When we're talking about the data, when we're starting to look at things like listing prices, when we're looking at, he hasn't got vendor discounting on here, but we can talk to that on another platform.
No, it's on Suburb Finder. So
exactly. Another platform called Suburb Finder. So vacancy rates, 0.7%.
Crazy.
Which is incredibly low. So if you're trying to rent your property in Maddington at the moment, it's going to be a super, super duper low. Rents have
absolutely skyrocketed as well.
What has?
Rents have skyrocketed. Like you look at that, it's gone up sort of about 15 to 20% in the last 12 months.
Yeah. So in 12 months, it was 350. It's now 400. Okay, still good.
If you look back at that's the median of all. That's all dwellings, Joe. That's
right.
not just that's units
houses.
and.
Yep.
Yeah. Oh, that's unit rents you're looking at.
Oh.
If you look at
house trends, house price.
Here we go.
No.
What doesn't he have house rents anyway?
Yeah. So some other things to look for, like we were talking about before. The time taken to sell a house is days on market is currently 45. That's
dropping.
Yeah, it's going down. Wait, it's going even more. It decreased from 58 12 months ago. So the days that it takes to sell a property is getting lower. It was 58, it's now 45. So that's a pretty large percentage. They estimate that this SA3, which is actually the Gosnell's SA3, 6% change in median house prices. Now, one thing that you can see it on this tool. You can see it. You just have to be boots on the ground. Maddington's one of those suburbs where you have to be boots on the ground. This is all industrial, all along here. All of this stuff is all industrial places. It is not the creme de la creme type of suburb that is getting. Now we only have 400 to 450,000. Well, Jef, you've only got 450,000.
I feel it's changing though, Joe. I feel that there's from what I've sort of seen in the last. I mean, I said this about cooling up, so I don't profess to be an expert on cooling up, but I mean maybe I was just picking and a lot of suburbs in Perth have gone up, but I think because you started to see a lot of more renovated properties pop up around the place. So that to me sort of tells me that things are starting to change a little bit. But the challenge you face with the Gosnells sort of LGA is I think there's a little bit of a difference between the Gosnells suburb and then even sort of Maddington and then going up further to Thornley as well, which Thornley you need, if you're going to buy in Thornley, you're not getting much under 400, under 500K. You're going to be buying high fours in Thornley, maybe even sort of 500. So we talk about the projects. Like there's not a thing that is not a major red flag, but a slight, the attraction to part of Gosnells is its proximity to the city. It's pretty close, but you need to take into they do have some projects happening. So they got the town centre redevelopment. They're sort of saying 25 million in the last decade. So it's a good amount, but yeah, they're talking about there's a business park, there's Sutherland's Park. So they're investing in, I suppose, desirability and hopefully creating more jobs in the sort of suburb. But
boom, that's what we want.
The other thing though that I'd like to sort of say is you just have to be like, you saw rents have gone up $60 per week no, 60 bucks. Yeah, $60 a week in the last 12 months. So I think you just need to be a little bit careful in terms of if you're buying a property at, say, 450, right on my sort of max, and you're expecting that it's going to rent for 500, 520, you just, because to maintain the yields that has been, I think the yields between sort of 5.5% to 6%. If you're expecting that, I think you just have to be a little bit careful, because we had Ashley Goodchild on a couple of weeks. She's our expert property manager on the ground, and what she was saying is $500 in the more sort of working class parts of Perth. $500 is kind of the sweet spot. So you start going above that, and you may sort of not attract tenants as quickly.
Yeah, and this is where the CEFA index is really, really handy, because it's created by the ABS, I believe, and it ranks how, like, where everyone is at from a financial standpoint. So something to consider, Armidale, for instance, very low value, very low socioeconomic. People are making money there, don't get me wrong, not an area that would be willing to put any money unless I had a very limited borrowing ability and capacity and a very active strategy. So the CEFA ranking is 1 is the worst. So you can see there's pockets that have 1 and 2, and then there's a 3, and then another, and then a 4.
And that reflects the price as well. So if you're spotting something that's 370,000 and you think you're getting a bargain, just double check, and even just call up if you're not going there in person, just double check with a property manager to sort of understand the type of tenant and the hot spots and the not spots, from not to disparage anybody. But out of interest, Joe, jump over to Thornley. Just I want to see what the CEFA kind of, let's do a bit of an experiment here. So it's TH. Oh yeah, you got it. I reckon the CEFA would be a little bit different. Yep, there you go. No, oh yeah. Well, there you go.
There it is.
Confirmed.
There it is. Right. And what's the price difference? Well, actually, I can tell you right here. So price segmentation.
It's about 50 to 100K roughly.
Okay. So the people in Thornley, so the price segmentation in Maddington was about 50-50 from 200 to 400,000. So that's very much off. But the majority of houses are in 400 to 600,000 in there. So what did you say? $50,000 to $100,000. But roughly, then the demographic of these areas have a lot more money to spend. So you can start to see that people can afford these properties a little bit more. So prices can continue to push because people can afford them. Now, that's just a general statement to think about when you're buying. It's not 100% fact. These things, this again, boots on the ground, right? Get down to the local area or have someone do that for you, and you'll be able to identify. But this is a much nicer pocket. Inventory levels are dropping, which is interesting.
Yeah, it's tough to buy in Thornley.
Oh, that's unit, sorry. Tough to buy in Thornley. House listings are dropping, which is a good sign. It means there's fewer properties available, which is putting upwards pressure on price. Housing inventory is kind of pretty stable. And then house prices are starting to climb.
So I think the verdicts, I suppose, and I do actually have a property that let's look at this property, Joe. But the verdict I have on Thornley is it's already seen. I'm not Thornley, sorry, Maddington you've seen a good amount of growth already in this area. So you just have to be. It's not to say that I chose this because it ticked. To find something under 450, it can be. You just need to be a little more discerning and make sure. But you just have to be very careful to understand the value in the suburb, because otherwise you can easily see yourself paying sort of 10 to 15 to 20K more, which, yes, they might still see a bit of growth, but in 5 or 10 years' time, you can sort of start to see, and particularly if you're not able to add value to a property. So just be a little bit cautious. But look, I think it's got some decent fundamentals.
Okay. So what would you buy in Maddington today?
Well, so I did a quick search, but if you jump on Maddington, Joe, jump on the literally going, pretty much everything is under offer. Like there's not a lot. Just do a bit. What I searched on, I'll tell you what my search terms were. So my search terms, if I go back to, so I'll tell you my filter. So I did between 350 to 450 and I did a house, and I did, that's all I did. I didn't do anything else. So a house between 350 and 450 in Maddington.
Okay, cool. You're going on domain. House.
Oh, you like domain? I like realestate.com, but yeah.
I like them both. Yeah, actually, that's actually a good point. Always check both platforms, because some real estate agents, some states as well, prefer real estate in domain over others. So, like,
just filter by newest, Joe, as in rather than featured. Filter, go down to newest.
Cool. Okay, so that one's a couple of 360 to 380, 242 square meter block.
Yeah, that's not really a house. Is this filtered by houses?
Yeah, it's a house.
Okay, yeah. So this is why I like to look at it on realestate.com, because it actually has doesn't say under offer on, or did you exclude anything that's hasn't been sold?
I don't know.
There you go. Yeah, anyway, but yeah, so the property that I selected, and should we do an Archistar in the show, or should we not? Because should we pop it into Archi?
Yeah, sure.
Okay. But the address though it's number 7 Banach, so BANACH Street in Maddington.
There it is. There's the Banachis.
Yeah.
Okay. Hey, while we're talking about Archistar, so Archistar is a platform. Chris is banging on about Archistar because Chris works at Archistar.
Loves it.
Chris loves Archistar. For investors, maybe Chris will get you on here and you can do a demo for us. For investors, Archistar is super valuable. The problem that it's had is that it's very expensive. So it's great for me because I'm able to pay for it because it works
floods,
really well.
There's a WA resource if you want to check out floods, and there's also a WA resource for fires as well.
Correct.
So this one might be in a flood zone. I suspect it might be. So
okay,
this would get ruled out straight away.
Let's head on. No, but the thing I was going to mention. Cool. Oh, there you go. Happy days. And this is why these type of tools and platforms just save you many, many hours in research and analytics on certain things. So one thing I want to know on Archistar is they created a free platform. They created a free version. So everyone that is listening to this, jump onto Archistar and try see what it is. I don't know what the free version is. I imagine there's limits to things that you can have access to. But for basic overview stuff, hands down, it's fantastic. So
sorry, Joe, sidetracked. But yeah, so
straight away, is it in a flood zone? No. Is it in a bushfire zone? No. Is it in a heritage zone? No. So
I imagine it's probably quite close. If you look at, you throw it on, I reckon it's pretty close to a flood zone. Yeah.
Oh wow.
I knew, because I know this pocket of Maddington, and it's the reason why is because you got that creek that's flowing through there. So it's, I suspect around there is floodplain. So you need to be. I mean, that's pretty bang on a flood. There's not a lot of flood zones in Perth. Somebody asked that question, but yeah, around this sort of Maddington and Thornley, you need to be careful. You need to really do that. But why did I like this property? I liked it because the block size is 800 square meters, and there's a bit of value add. So the zoning it's going to be tough to, even for a knockdown rebuild 1 into 2. It's going to be quite tough because the minimum land size at the moment is 400. Oh, it's 500 at R17.
Yeah, and yeah,
minimum
500.
So here you go.
It's at R7. Yeah, R17.5 is a terrible zoning for development. Yeah. So you can't build anything really unless you got a massive block.
The interesting thing with some parts of Gosnells is they are proposing is only that. So just be careful on buying something on potential. So if it's potential, so this is potentially rezoned to R20, which will mean I think it's 400 square meters. So I think to do a development on this anytime soon, you're going to be struggling. So I thought, I didn't check the zoning before, but I thought that's a big block of land. I might be able to develop that in the future. But anyway, enough on me. So that's a bit of an insight into Maddington.
So this is your pick. Okay. So what do you talk me through this one, Jef? What am I looking at?
There wasn't a lot to pick, mate. Like literally pretty much everything's under offer. And this was just, I'm not picking a 200 square meter. Yeah, no, it's ugly. I like it. I'm my brief is I'm an ugly duckling. So I would go in and like it appears as though it's got good bones. So you go in, you sort of clean up that paintwork. I mean, and you even the kitchen as well. If you look at the kitchen, it's a bit dated. So kitchen is dated. It's not too bad actually, but
It's got
but
life
even
left.
yeah, yep. And then the oh yeah.
You could
It's
spruce it up a bit externally as well because it looks pretty ugly out there. Out the back, look, is that the back or the front? That's the back. Looks fine.
It's a neatish property. It just needs it doesn't need like a full house reno. You could spend 10 to 15K on that one, and that's kind of my modus operandi because, and you may not get your $2 back. So maybe violating that rule, but there you go.
That's a fun little one, mate. And then the only other thing that I would be looking at is just the potential for a subdivision and development, like a battle axe down the line, and identifying where the property is located.
That's where realestate.com works really well.
Yeah, it's better for that. So yeah, we just need to do that.
There you go. So was that valuable for people? I mean, I feel like I rushed through it a little bit because Joe's got a heap of value to add, and we're trying to lock this into an hour 30. So
okay. Are we? Okay. We got a question from Chris. He says, "Do you guys always look for properties that need a little renovating?"
Yeah, definitely. Well, maybe not. In me personally.
Yeah. That's a great. Yeah, you personally, do you always look for renovators?
Yeah. I mean, it depends on. I look for value add, so it doesn't have to be a renovation, but there has to be something I can do to the property, whether that be a subdivision down the track or a subdivision now. And the problem with those type of properties, the development potential ones, is you're paying for that potential. So you have to expect that you're going to pay a little bit of a premium, and just make sure you're not paying for something that's not worth the juice, not being worth the squeeze. But I do like a bit of a reno, and Joe loves a reno too.
I love a reno. I do. I mean, what I personally like is a renovation, but what do I buy set and forgets as well? Because again, the renovation is a good little boost to get your deposit back, right? You spend $20,000 and like I said, 280 to 300, and then I get it revalued at 360. But again, the true value is the location, is understanding the fundamentals, the analysis, and the boots on the ground port piece, because that took it from 360 to 550. So if I just bought it at 360, didn't have the time, energy, resources, risk tolerance for a renovation, then I'm gonna have to sit on the sidelines. I'm not getting that $60,000 extra equity. I'm just gonna have to sit on the sidelines and get that, and then from there, you can sit in a good growth location and then get the capital growth uplift. But there's a great question that's come in. I can't get anything for $10,000 to $15,000 in Sydney. What's the average reno cost for a bathroom?
Depends on where it is.
It literally does depend on where it is,
and what you're doing as well. Like if you're doing a full bathroom, like you're not going to get a full. Like what are you doing to the cost of labor and all that sort of stuff as well? Like Sydney, they just like to charge more because I suppose they can.
Yeah, I mean they got to pay the tradies have to pay their rent as well in these areas, so they're gonna charge more. There is like a postcode thing. Like I've literally spoken to Sparkies that service Western Sydney and Northern Beaches, and they say literally I will charge almost double just because it's the postcode. So it really depends on what you are doing. Bathrooms right now, I don't even look at a bathroom renovation because I know that the money's not there. Like, if you see something that's trashed in a bathroom, for me, I don't think there's value there. So I say no, thank you. I'm not going to make my dollar back. I'm not going to make my $2 back because it's just not going to make sense. Yeah.
Should we go to where we go next, Joe? You're taking reins now.
I'm taking the reins. Look, Jef, you've got a budget of 400 to 450,000. I'm glad. Good for you. That's good. I'm coming along now. I've got a little bit more. I've got $600,000 to play with. Now, bearing in mind, going back to what we were talking about, my goal is not to knock the lights out with this location. Is this the absolute best location to be buying right now if you add $600,000? depending on your brief, it might be perfect for you. This area is a perfect for you kind of set and forget location where long term the fundamentals are there. The fundamentals are going to make sense, and you're going to do all right because you've done the basic due diligence and identified the area yourself. And that area is, where is it? How far away from Melbourne is it? It is an hour and 15 minutes away from Melbourne. It is the city of Geelong. Geelong is a very interesting market. Only an hour and 15 away. They are putting a lot of infrastructure, and I guess that's kind of what we'll talk to. So when we talk about things, what are we going to talk about? We're going to talk about the population. We're going to talk about the projects, the employment, the desirability. So let's start talking about those things. Lifestyle. One of the drivers of Geelong is the lifestyle appeal. It has a lot of coastal living vibe, which is more and more increasingly adding to bringing people to it. So from a desirability standpoint, it's very desirable, but it's still very affordable as well. There is a bit of a diversification of housing stock as well. There are newer pockets, and there are the older points as well. They are trying to revitalize the areas a little bit more. So they're trying to spend money. I'm trying to find, I had some notes here about what they're spending in the area to bring it up. It's not off the top of my head. A Geelong City deal. That's what it is. Geelong City deal, $382 million, an agreement between Australian and Victorian governments for the city of Geelong to revitalise the city and stimulate economic growth. This deal includes the infrastructure, tourism, urban renewal projects. Some initiatives of the city deal include Geelong's Convention and Exhibition Centre and revitalising City of Geelong. There is a Geelong fast rail that's getting in the pipelines. The Spirit of Tasmania is now coming out of Geelong. So all of those people now need new jobs because there's all of these new people that need to get into the Spirit of Tasmania. They need to do their thing. So much infrastructure in Geelong City Council is going broke. Oh, dear. They need to manage their budgets a little bit better, but they're spending a lot right now. So, again, this is not a knock the lights out right now. What are the downsides of Geelong? One of them right now is the yield. The price has risen a lot. It's hard to get that return for a yield perspective. Long-term capital growth, yes, I think if you buy in the right pockets, you're going to do really, really well. You're going to do well. Really, really, really well. You can do. There are better locations to be buying in right now. Again, they've got the city. They've got the University of what's it called? Deakin University. That's bringing a lot more people to drive that more.
A great question. Love to see a comparison between Geelong, Wollongong, and Newcastle.
Here's one I prepared earlier. In fact, that is one of the things that I really like about Wollongong and Geelong. It's Geelong and Wollongong are exactly the same. Like they're the same place. They are both 85 kilometers away from the city.
The weather's better down here, man. I don't know. I've been to Geelong, but I imagine the weather is rubbish down there.
Yeah, that's very true. So Geelong is 75 kilometers southwest of Melbourne. Wollongong is 85 kilometers from the city of Sydney. They're both considered commuting distances. Population-wise, Geelong has 275,000 people. Wollongong has 306,000 people. So both have steady population growth coming along. I think we've got a population growth chart somewhere. I don't really want to make it too chart focused, but that's Geelong projects, massive projects coming in, project value, blah, blah, blah. Spirit of Tasmania, population. So in 2021 to 2041, there's going to be a 33% increase in population, which is bloody massive, right? Both Geelong and Wollongong have a history of manufacturing heavy industry. They are now kind of transitioning to more knowledge-intensive economies, right? So we're starting to see more healthcare, education, technology. Working from home has really helped Wollongong and Geelong. They both have major universities. Geelong has the City of Geelong, Deakin University in Geelong, and Wollongong has the University of Wollongong.
Newcastle has the Uni of Newcastle as well.
Yeah, I didn't really throw Newcastle in that mix. Both are lifestyle focused, lots of beaches, parks. What I really like, why I like Geelong over Wollongong is if Sydney's worth $1 million, and I know it's not, Sydney's $1 million, right? Sydney Wollongong is $700,000 to $800,000, so 70 to 80% the value of Sydney. In Geelong, let's say it's $1 million in Geelong. Geelong is worth $600,000 to $700,000, right? So there's a disparity, 60 to 70% rather than 70 to 80% of the value. So if you're pro Melbourne and you see there's a lot of growth coming to Melbourne, there is a differential between the two. The cities are very similar. They're very, very similar, but the disparity is 10% of that. So you could say there's 10% value that can come up for the market. Now, they are not identical. They're not exactly the same thing, but I like to see that in the market.
I think the thing you're underestimating there, Joe, because you haven't got, have you got $3 and $4 million suburbs in Geelong though?
Geelong has the Commonwealth Games coming in 2026. When's that coming to Wollongong, mate?
We had the World Cycling, whatever. We had Mike Mortlock down here. So I don't care about the Com Games. What about the cycling, mate? They closed down. It was good times, but no, like I think the underestimated part that is that really rich, the really affluent people who have gotten sick and tired of Sydney will move down to the northern parts of Wollongong where they're selling their properties for 7 or 8 million and they're. But anyway, let's talk Geelong.
It's not all roses. This is one thing to note as well. There's a high rate of low-income households. So the Victorian average is 18.3% for low incomes. In pockets of Geelong, in pockets of Norlane, that's 52%. So there is a much larger opportunity for housing stress. So yes, the houses are more affordable down there, but you do need to be very, very careful of the areas that you choose. Should you buy or should you bail? That was the question. Where did we get to? Blah, blah, blah. Anyway, out of all of the pockets, if I had $600,000 and I had to buy in an area that was, I had 600. What was the brief? $600,000, and it was just over the basic fundamentals of a long-term capital growth buy and hold. Then I would be putting my money around that area to keep. Yeah, because it's valuable, right? So the area that I chose out of that, well, let's kind of just check it out. Value-wise, if I have, let's go to the map view, and this is what I like to do as well. Let's say I have how much money? Buy. What's my price? My price is up to 600. I've got 600 to 650.
No, you don't have 650, Joe. When did somebody give you? Yeah,
sorry,
600.
I got inheritance. I passed go, and I inherited. And okay, so then you look at is that doing 800,000? So you can start to, you can then start to cut out. You can start to cut out the areas that aren't suitable. So we've got this. Where are you buying? Pockets of Corio. Corio is getting expensive. 500 to 600. Okay, that's interesting. How do you drop it? I can't take it anyway. I don't actually do this. I just kind of know the areas of where's valuable and where's not. So the pockets that I would be looking at is Bell Park. So the area that I would be looking for is a suburb called Bell Park. I really like Bell Park. It's got a lot of these older houses, but we're still looking at data, right? So we jump over here into the data tool and we go back to suburb trends and we start typing in all of the suburbs there. So there's a suburb called Norlane in Geelong.
People
right?
aren't fans of Norlane in the comments, so Corio either.
All right. I'm a fan of Norlane. I think it has a lot of potential. So we go back, look at the data. Median house price is $459,000. 12 months ago, it's grown not very much. It's grown $4,000 in 12 months. House listings, there's 42 on the market. The inventory levels, interestingly, are quite stable, but they are trending up. So be very, very careful of this uptrend because more housing on the market means more people are interested. More houses, more inventory means there's more houses. Supply and demand. Remember the supply and demand ratio. More listings are coming to the market. That ain't good. We don't want to see more listings, which is why the house prices have been stable. And again, I think that this data is a little bit off because it's not 727 in Norlane. Price segmentations, a lot of the prices are within this kind of 400 to 600 mark. Profiles in Norlane, the CIFA ranking for Norlane is just 1, not very much. Yes, that's funny. Pockets of Norlane. Full disclosure, I own a property in Norlane, and yeah, it's rougher. It's rough. It's a rougher area. But again, you need to do it based on your strategy. If you need to pull equity out, you can go to areas that are a little bit lower socioeconomic, and you can drive and force the value, exactly like what I did. But then, yeah, just go through all of the suburbs on here. Bell Post Hill is another one, right? That's just above. What's the data looking like? Okay, the CIFA ranking over here is very good. I'm now starting to understand, hey, I should go to this area and see, why is this super valuable? Maybe there's a university. Maybe there's a college there. Maybe everyone wants to live there that has money. Cool. And you can start to see the CIFA ranks again. Suburb data. Now, one thing to be aware of is there's the Geelong Ring Road. So there is a lot of land supply over here, but don't get too disparaged, because this actually separates a lot. Like, it's not a super geographical bound, but Geelong doesn't start here yet. So I wouldn't be too upset about this land supply for Geelong, because it is very hilly. So yeah, one thing to just think about. And then check out our other suburb here, Bell Park. So then we look at the data for Bell Park, and we can see that housing inventory is starting to trend up. That is not a good thing. We don't want to be seeing that. Listings have been somewhat stable, but have started to raise. House prices have been pretty stable. Again, I'm doing this for a set and forget client that is looking for a stable market. So you're not going to shoot the lights out. So let's have a look here. Days on market is currently 35. It increased from 26 12 months ago. So it has gone up. SA3, the regional SA3 regional data has climbed 1%. So again, this is the biggest downside for it. $400 a week rent is not very good. So if we open up my handy dandy Chrome extension and you've got $600 a week rent, a $600,000 purchase price, and you have $450 a week rent, that's a 3.9% yield. That's not even 4%. So that's pretty, that's not very good. So this is why I'm saying long-term, you're going to do all right, but short-term, it's going to cost you a little bit. But if you can, let's start talking strategy. That's for the set and forget type of person. Go buy a set and forget type of deal. Let me just bring this out of the map and start to look at the properties. But before I do that, why did I choose Bell Park? Well, the reason I chose Bell Park, look
at that, Joe. Look at the disparity between the 2 and the 2 to the 3 and the 3 to 4. Ooh.
Look at the disparity between the two bedrooms. So if I had a 2-bedroom house, it's 500. It's the difference is 633 minus 531. That is $102,000. So if I can find a 2-bedroom house, put a wall up, it'll cost you $5,000 to put a wall up. You then just grew your property $100,000, because I'm not selling my property. One thing that people get a little bit excited about is, maybe not excited, is all you're trying to do is the price doesn't matter of the property, right? The only time it matters is 1, when you buy it, and 2, when you sell it. The only other thing that you're trying to do is drive the value for a valuer. So I'm not interested about what the market's trying to say. I'm interested in what the value is saying. So I'm trying to drive that value. How do I drive that value? By changing the makeup of that place. So moving it from a 3-bed 1-bath to a 4-bed 2-bath is going to drastically change the property. And you can see that here with this area. This is why I love this area. So $760,000 for a 4-bed minus 633 for a 3-bed. That's $127,000 because you put a wall up. What? So let's see what properties are on the market here. 1, we can already see that disparity happening. Why don't we charge for this stuff, Jef? Why is this group free? Why we're giving people this ridiculous things?
I'm just more captivated by the amount of there's a bit of shade being thrown at Corio and Norlane in the comments, and I'm like, I expected it to be about Maddington and Gosnells. So there was not a lot of. There was some interesting. There's some good questions on that, but yeah.
Poor strategy. Norlane is full of housing commission junkies. Okay,
well, I don't know. Is it though?
Let's divert the traffic. We're not in. We are close to and this is why you need to get boots on the ground, because you need to identify what the areas are differently as well. The rougher areas of Geelong are this Norlane and Corio area, but it is also broken up in here between this train line. Actually breaks it up quite nicely. So it starts to get nicer in this Bellpost Hill, Hamlin Heights, North Geelong. The prices definitely shift and change into there. Anyway, going back to, again, we're doing some analytics here. $430,000 for a 3-bed. This house needs work, right? It needs the same amount of renovation as this house, but there is 4-bed, 1-bath, 3-bed, 1-bath. 650 square meters. Just because there's a wall up, it has 530 to 570. It's a lot of money.
Well, I suppose you need to. Yeah, does it have the floor plan on it? Because can you actually turn it into a 4-bedder, Joe?
I don't know. Let's check the floor plan. This is what you got to do. You got to see if you can throw a wall up. Can we do it? Can it be done?
It's a corner block as well. Probably not.
Oh, actually, this was my pick. This is the pick. This was my property pick. This is a corner block. Super valuable because of the reasons we'll talk to. Look at this. We've got a 1, 2, 3 bed with a living room and a massive laundry and bathroom. So can we somehow change the configuration of this house to make it a 3-bed, 2-bath? Because technically it is. Because if we go through here, it's rough. It needs a renovation. But what is the median house price for the area? The median house price for the area for a 4-bed is $760,000. We're buying this. How much are we buying this for? 530 to 580,000. So can we take it to that next level? Yes, we can. But for this type of renovation, we're going to have to spend a shoot load of money. Like, this is a full house. This is full.
It's probably 40K, probably at least.
Mate, I reckon. Oh, geez. Bathroom as well. Like, I think we're in for. Yeah, I think we're in for $50,000 to $80,000. Now, what am I looking for? It is a main road, yes. So that's definitely a downside. But look at that land. I can subdivide off that land, and how much is land selling? This is how easy this stuff is. How much is land selling? So let's do it. Go to land sales. Land is selling for $215,000 to $225,000. So I can buy this property. Let's just do the numbers. I'm buying this property for, say, $550,000, and then I'm putting in $50,000. So that makes it $600,000 in, minus selling off the land for $215,000, $385,000. Now you need to obviously spend money on doing these subdivision and all of that stuff, but you can sell that back block and then have this front house super cash flow positive because you took the $215,000 that you just made and put it into the front lot. And all of a sudden you got a massive cash flow property. Would I do that? Probably not. What I would actually do is I would buy this house, renovate it up, get it to about that $650,000 mark, sell the front house, and then own this back block and then build on the block, because then I'm getting the depreciation benefits of the back block while also getting rid of this property that's on a main road. So you're not going to get a premium price for this because this is a very main road, and it's not going to be premium. Very interesting that they've got this house on this main road, but on this large parcel of land, and there's only 2 houses. But I digress.
Whew. There you go. I think you did well, Joe, to get that all in.
Okay, thanks, mate. But yeah, hang on. One other thing that I was looking at. The other thing that you have to actually look at is not just the data. It is what property. So that's the land that's sold. but what is actually for sale and selling at these prices. So I ran a 4-bedroom. Let's have a look. 4-bedroom sold between 550 and 950. 4-bedroom house, 900,000, 675,000, 850,000. 890,000, 730,000. So we're buying this for 550,000. So there is this is a cracking deal. Like, someone go out there and, not financial advice, but do something smart to this property, add the value yourself. There's $100,000 difference in that renovation. Put $50,000 into it and get $100,000. There's your $1 into $2. You then get your deposit back, almost get your deposit back, sell off the back block, build on it, sell the front house. You're good to go. You'll then be able to sell that house for what on that main road.
You may be able to sell the block. I mean, that's yeah.
Well, you would be able to sell the block. Well, blocks are selling, but then you're selling a 3-bedroom, 2-bathroom property. Yeah. There you go. I've gotten excited.
Yeah, I suppose I just want to say, like, renovating is not the block. Like, it can be bloody tough. Like, so you just
that job is massive.
If you're not, if you don't sort of prepare yourself for that, then you will. Yeah, it's just important to highlight that the renovating, yes, whilst it can be profitable, you need to, I suppose, have realistic expectations that it can take longer, it can be hard to organise trades, all those sort of good things as well. It can cost more as well than your budget. So I'm a risk mitigator as much as I can.
Yeah, I agree. I think this is a massive project, and one that would be very, very expensive if you didn't do it yourself. So
potential.
It's got potential. I really like it. It's a cracking deal. Do what you want with it. So what else do we got? Is that it?
That's about it, Joe. Let's go to Q&A for probably 5 minutes or so, or 5 or so minutes. Because
actually, I've got a question. I'm thinking maybe we think about live events. Would anyone be interested in a live event in Melbourne, in Victoria, in Geelong? Like, if we had a live event in Geelong, if we had a live event in Wollongong, if we had a live event in Sydney, would people actually be interested in that? I don't know. I can drop in there tomorrow for you. Yeah, exactly. Someone, if anyone,
that's Brian. Brian saying
Brian's going to come. Oh, mate, Brian, you're on every bloody live session. We have to meet you, mate. I have to meet you. Absolutely, for sure. Okay. Any questions that came through, Jeff? I was kind of going on a rant there, so I got excited. I got a little too excited.
No, so drop your. Yeah, it's all right. No, I like it. It's good you get excited. I mean, I suppose I try and Sydney area very interested. Yeah, there is. Yeah, we are potentially in very, very preliminary talks, because I have to. I've got a few commitments of my, so I'd have to.
We're just lazy. We're busy property investors, and setting up an event is very cool. But
there were some interesting, really great. Somebody mentioned Kelmscott in Perth. I think Kelmscott didn't quite hit my sort of, because it did pop up in the 4 to 450K. Yeah, I just think it's a bit further down from memory, far from down from Gosnells. These are back from. Let's see, Kelmscott, because I've looked at that one.
Kelmscott is in Armidale. Now, Kelmscott is in Armidale, and
tread cautiously.
Tread very, very cautiously of Kelmscott. It is very affordable. Again, this is what I'm talking about, all this housing supply. This housing supply is in the Gosnells LGA and Champion Lakes. This Champion Lakes is 100% getting converted to land, but it is a part of the Gosnells and Savile Grove. So Savile Grove, let's look at Savile Grove, actually. The data on Savile Grove is really, really good. So if you look at our house trends, inventory levels are slowly dropping. Housing listings dropping. We are going to see prices move in Savile Grove. What are the purchase price segmentations? This affordable price range. It's got some tops. Elevation wise, it's not too crazy. Profile wise, it's got really good profile. So I've done a lot of data and research, and all these tools that we're giving you are free. This is not the stuff that I kind of use in-house to do the research, but these are all free tools that you can do. I've done a lot of research into Seville Grove. It was an area that, from a data perspective, I was going to buy in, but I did the boots on the ground research. I went to the area, and Armadale is not an area that ticks the box. When you go there, you will know what I'm talking about. So this is the best example of why boots on the ground is important, because I've been to a lot of suburbs in Australia. I've lived in many suburbs in Australia, and Armadale, I've never been to a suburb that I disliked so much from a.
Mate, you haven't been to Mount Druitt then, Joe. Back in the 2000s, you've not been to Mount Druitt. I must say.
I haven't been to, maybe 2000. I'm sure I went to Mount. I've visited Mount Druitt. I'm from the Blue Mountains.
Which part, mate? What about Blacketts? Like, I was seeing cars stolen from Blacketts in the 2000s. So yeah, look, I think there's opportunity, but maybe Joe and I could have a little powwow offline, but I tend to agree. You just have to be very cautious.
Someone's had to say it for me. I will say it for you.
No, mate, but I don't know. I like a bit of 16th of May in Sydney or 2nd of June. Houses are $800 to $1 million. Yeah, I mean, in Mount Druitt, but I mean, there's still pockets of Mount Druitt that you need to be cautious of. Like, there's still, there's still places you can pick up for $500 to $600K, $650. And that price for a reason. I'm sure you can. Yeah. This is an interesting one as well. Only 23% of homes owned outright. Does that not affect any mortgage stress? I mean, I've not actually thought of that data point, because for me, I suppose the way I would think about it is if people were to default, because how do you know what the other percentage of the, like, they might be, how much debt they have on it? You probably can't find that out. So, I mean, if everything else was ticking the boxes, you'd probably be okay. But just, it's a little bit of an amber flag for me, potentially, or a yellow flag, that one.
Yeah. It's definitely something to be considered. It is, because you don't want to buy in an area that's 100% rented, because then who's going to drive the capital value? Because
this is more about whether people have a mortgage on a property or not. So it's more about like, do they have debts attached to the property? Because if let's just say, because with interest rates rising, like, people could then end up defaulting, and then potentially more properties could come on the market, which supply and demand. If demand stays equal, then supply comes on. Your prices will, in theory, should come down or equal or sort of stabilize a bit. Kind of stay the same. What somebody say?
I heard you don't like Ipswich. Where do people hear that about me?
Is that Braden, or is it? Oh, no,
I don't know.
Oh, it's Lisa.
I heard you don't like Ipswich. I don't not like Ipswich. I just think that for the money, there are different locations that you can be buying. But again, what is your strategy? What are you trying to achieve? Where are you looking to go? Can you force value? What is the disparity? All of those type of things. So no, I'm not anti Ipswich. I just think that there are different pockets around there where there is less land supply risk as well, because Ipswich has a lot of land supply risk, and they can just keep
kind of the same with Toowoomba. Like, which Toowoomba is absolutely on a bit of a tear at the moment, by the looks of it.
Well, yeah, but Toowoomba's very hilly. It's very much geographically, it is hard. Like, there is a lot of land and there's a lot of farmland out the back of it, but
national park as well, where you couldn't sort of build up to
kind of hemmed in a little bit differently. So that's a different story to Ipswich. And also Ipswich has a lot of flooding as well.
Yeah. This one was interesting. One for you, Joe. How do you confirm income with boots on the ground? I think I've got an answer for this one, but you answer it first, Joe. Let Joe go soon. He needs to go.
How do you confirm income data with boots on the ground? I don't know. How do you, the data?
You know this, like, bloody burnouts on the street. Like, people are like throwing their trash out the thing. So if you see income data is lower, and you're seeing people with, like, doing burnouts, like cars on the front lawn, well, that's what boots on the ground is confirming. You're collaborating. Whereas if you've got people with lots of income, but then there's cars on the front lawn, and then you kind of mismatch between what's going on there. So from an entire absolutely, that's what we're looking for. Exactly, by the number of cars. What would you do in that situation anyway, Joe? Like, if
sorry, think my
What would you do in
instincts
that situation if you had like really good income, sort of, but there was just you drove boots on the ground and there was like burnouts in front, cars in the front yard, shopping trolleys? How would you then say, well, it looks a bit ordinary, but there's
Yeah,
a
well, it
lot of
depends on what's coming there as well. Like, is there renovations happening? Are the properties looked after? Is this the owner occupier pocket, or is this everyone on here is a renter? So yeah, you gotta watch out for those things, because that might not be a
not because he needs to get paid by somebody, by the way.
Yeah. So yeah. That's why boots on the ground is important, because an area from a data perspective says this area is made up of 50% renters, but then you go there and that's on an SA1 level. So the way that the regions work is it's made of SA4, which is like a massive geographical area, which is like massive, like a massive chunk. It's broken by actual numbers of population. Then SA3 is like your Geelong, it's kind of cut down like that. And then your SA2 is like your kind of suburb, which is like Bellpost Hill or Norlane. And then your SA1 is broken up little segments of that area. Owner-occupier appeal is definitely crucial to help capital growth drive. Like that's when you're starting to get to the micro of the areas. Because at the end of the day, if you look at the numbers, 65% of people, 65 to 70% are owner occupiers. Those are the market. Those people are driving the capital growth. And if no owner occupier wants to live there, they're not going to drive that capital growth for that area. So I would rather be in a nicer pocket at a more affordable value, because the owner occupiers are going to push that value up. They're going to look after their lawns. They're going to look after their areas. And this is the difference between a hot spot and a not spot. And it can be tens of thousands and hundreds of thousands of dollars if you're stuck in one of these not spots. It just doesn't grow. However, if you can't afford to buy in some of these areas, but you see the growth of the area, then do it. Do what you can. Do what you can to get into the market. So when people are saying, "Hey, should I wait?" Well, if you can do some active strategy and force value, then great, do it.
You just have to then understand and appreciate that you have to tolerate that you might get a less than desirable tenant every couple of tenancies, unfortunately.
Yeah. This has been a valuable session. I actually got a lot out of this, Jef. So thank you very much for doing that. Thank you for everyone. Thank you for everyone that showed up. Thank you for all the questions. It's good to kind of go back and forth, because it is just the two of us here. Usually we have a guest, but I hope that was valuable for people. If you did get value out of that, we have a little gentleman's agreement, little ladies agreement with our show. So if you got value out of this, go onto YouTube and subscribe. If you liked this,
probably need the YouTube link. Let me drop that in the
give them the YouTube link, because you can catch up to all of the episodes. Because for me, I'm never available 7:30 on a Wednesday night to watch these things. I'm typically in them. So if you want to catch up, jump on the podcast. I think we're on Spotify and Apple and all of that, and then jump on the YouTubes. So
what I was going to say as well, and I shouldn't do this to poor Joe, but I'm going to say it. If you want a live event, send Joe a direct message, because flood his inbox, and we'll if Joe, I was going to say, if Joe gets 5, maybe I shouldn't say that. Sorry, don't do that to Joe. Oh,
yeah,
sorry,
if people
Joe.
want a live event, I'm open to a discussion around live events. I think there's value in it, because it allows people in the community to meet other people. They don't come for us. People aren't coming to our live events to meet us. They're doing it for an excuse to meet like-minded people, because that was why we created this entire group, Jef. You didn't have any friends
in 2033 though, Joe. I don't. Yeah, well, that'll be enough time for me to get it ready.
Let's do it.
To get it ready.
Okay. Look forward to watching us on YouTube channel. Look at that. That's the gentleman's agreement there in action. You got value out of this.
Jenny, gentle lady.
Yeah, and ladies.
But Jenny, that was a great group. She mentioned she's loving a mums and ladies renovations group.
No, mums and dads renovators. So if you are interested in renovation, and Belinda Smith, we've had her on the show. She talks great. There's a great lot of value there. It's a great little community. I don't want to put an age bracket around it, but it's a great little community for mums and dads renovators. Like, it's
Belinda's watching.
and ladies. Belinda Smith's watching. Oh, no way. Hey, Belinda. Lovely group. We've just mentioned your group again because it's so great. So, yes, join Belinda Smith's group. It's really good for renovating. Thank you, everyone, for watching. Let's go buy a property. Is that what we're signing off? Have a good one.
Let's go accelerate our property portfolio.